Hi, everyone. Welcome to the IRX boot camp with Kresse Wesling. Oh, that was suddenly really loud. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Kresse. Does that work? My name is Kresse. I'm the co-founder of Elvis and Kresse. I started a business in 2005, and the main point of the business was to rescue London's damaged, decommissioned fire hoses and turn them into luxury accessories. So this is a 17-year-old bag that is made from a 25-year-old material. We started doing that as a hobby because we didn't want the fire hose to go to landfill, and half of the profits go to the firefighters' charity. So that's where we started in 2005. From an online perspective, I think what's quite interesting about that is that there was no Shopify or Squarespace or internet trading in 2005. It was really difficult. So our first ever website, we coded on Dreamweaver. So we had to design it and code it ourselves, which was interesting. And I kind of wish we'd started the business a bit later. But the business has grown since then. We now rescue 18 different materials. We have charity partnerships for each material that we rescue because we continue to give half of the profits to charity. And we make the products here in the UK. Everything's made up in our own factories. We have 2 now. And the factory that we're just completing is based on a farm in Kent. It's made entirely of straw bales. It's powered by its own solar panels. Doesn't use any fossil fuels, and it treats all of its own waste and wastewater through a wetland system. So any ecological thing that we can do as a business, we do.
I was just about to ask you, tell us more about your farm.
Yeah, I mean, the farm is really interesting. Right before the pandemic, we ran out of space. So we thought, let's buy a farm because that's where you've got all these buildings and you can really expand. But then also we became farmers because there's no point in having land if you're not going to do anything interesting with it. So we started looking into organic farming, biodynamic farming, regenerative agriculture, those kinds of things. And we did a lot of soil studies. And what those revealed to us was the best thing we could do, which is also quite cool, is plant vines. So last year we planted 11,832 vines, and we'll have wine, probably the most ecological wine in the UK by 2026.
This is actually really, really cool because I was speaking to Kresse before, and she was telling, I'd just like to emphasize that from start to end, this is entirely sustainable. Just wanted to ask, what made you go in that direction from the beginning?
I grew up in Canada. I grew up in rural Canada, and I was camping a lot as a kid. And then I went to Hong Kong to finish high school. And while I was there, I couldn't handle the fact that half of its untreated sewage went into the sea, and it was basically killing sharks and destroying coral reefs. And I became probably overnight a hardcore environmentalist. And I have been setting up businesses since I was 20, and they have all been environmentally friendly businesses. So I can't do anything if it's not in service of the environment.
That's absolutely amazing because she was telling me, she said, if it's not good for the environment, we're not going in that direction.
Yeah.
And you kept emphasizing it. And now it's become a trend, right?
Yes. And I think there's no end to how far you can go. So we've built our own sewage system, which is pretty extreme. But our sewage system, because it's a constructed wetland, has these amazing outputs. It creates a huge amount of biodiversity on our farm, a habitat for birds and toads and newts. And I think one of the newts we think we saw a great crested newt, which is quite rare. So that's amazing. But also it's got 500 willow planted in it, which is the fastest growing hardwood. We can make baskets. We can make homeware out of that. And because it's being fed effectively by our wastewater, it's supercharged with phosphorus and nitrogen, which means it's growing at pretty much twice the rate that willow would originally. So you can either view wastewater as a problem, or you can view it as a food to creating more raw materials for your business, which is what we're doing.
Yeah. That's absolutely amazing. I just wanted to take, a lot of our audience are here to ask you about like your online presence a bit more.
Yep.
So I know you were telling me earlier that you actually learned to code and do it all yourself. So could you tell me more about that entire process?
Yeah, I think when we started, we knew we wanted to be an online business because we went and spoke to a lot of boutiques and retailers, and they thought our idea of luxury fire hose bags was a little crazy. But when we talked to normal people, they thought it was a fantastic idea. So we thought we needed to cut out retailer. And that's why we set up the first website, which was pretty bad. I mean, it was 2005. It was what we could do, and still people bought items on it. At that time, we were only selling belts. But over time, we started building building out our products, so making more and more types of pieces. And at the same time, we started building an audience for the website. And I think the thing that probably drove the most traffic to the website in the early years was that we started doing open house in our workshops in the UK. So we always wanted people to believe that we do what we say we do. So we've always had an open door policy. Anyone can come to the workshop at any time and ask any question and see anything. So we don't believe in all of these secrets in luxury where you can't see next year's collection and it's all under wraps and you can't know anything about our supply chain. You know, we are the supply chain and we're really proud of it, so we want people to see it all the time. And because we had that open door policy, we had a lot of journalists in the early years come to see us and write really interesting articles about what we did. A lot of them were writing articles about the fact that we give half of the profits to firemen, and because firemen are a uniquely popular audience, let's say, that also drove a lot of traffic. And what a lot of people don't realize is that you have to think about how many firefighters there are in the UK. There's 66,000 of them. So a lot of young companies would think, well, what's the size of my potential audience, or what's the size of my consumer group? We had, from day one, 66,000 firefighters who were learning about us all the time just through their fire brigades. And that was an amazing way for a business like ours to really launch. And actually, people from within the fire service community are still probably some of our best customers around the world. So our biggest market outside of the UK is the US. And that's a country certainly where there's a hugely sort of positive relationship between the general public and firefighters, whom are sort of revered as heroes. And it's very similar in South Korea and Japan, where we also have a lot of sales.
And how have you kind of developed this audience over time? I'm guessing over social media and other online presences.
Well, we started in the year Twitter started, so social media wasn't really big either in the beginning. But what was big was actually being social. So genuinely telling people what you do and inviting them down to show them what you do. And we still continue that same thing today. You know, we have 15 people coming to the workshop in Kent to the farm this Friday. We have another 15 coming next Friday. Sort of Friday afternoons is the best time for us generally. It's a bit slower than Monday mornings, let's say. But I think it's because we've always had this physically open door. And then we talk about that in social media. We have a newsletter. We share that. We're also lucky that when we share a newsletter, generally the firefighters charity shares that newsletter as well. And also so do the fire brigades and other people within our community.
Mm-hmm. And what were you, I mean, in the early stages, you obviously had the support of the firefighters community. What were your challenges when trying to grow your presence?
I mean, probably the biggest challenge was the fact that we were trying to turn decommissioned fire hose into a luxury textile. It's a really heavy industrial rubber. It's 4 millimeters thick. And the first bags that we made could not be lifted by a normal average human being. Certainly not if you put anything inside of them. They were really, really heavy. It took us, we made belts first because technically that's all we were capable of doing. And it took us a while to learn to sew and basically transform old fire hoses into a textile. Elvis, who's my partner, he designed 3 machines, and we built 3 machines in order to turn fire hose into a textile. So that was the starting point. And then there was just, I don't know, the early years of any business are difficult because you're always trying to find people to talk to about what you do, and you're always trying to make your products better, and you're always trying to work out, well, what should we make next, or what can we do after that?
Mm-hmm. And you were telling me earlier about like your manufacturing process and how before you moved to this new farm that you were having difficulties with it being an old building. Could you tell our audience a bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, we started the business in 2005 next to our bed. So our bed was here, and there was a rivet press next to it, and we were cleaning fire hose in the bathtub. So it was very simple. Yeah. And then we moved it into a shed, and then we moved it into a large conservatory that we borrowed from one of our neighbors. And then we started renting a series of bigger workshops. So the building we were in just before this was a mill, an old water mill that we bought in 2013, and we converted into a workshop. And it was amazing, and we thought we would never outgrow it. But eventually, just before the pandemic, space was getting really tight. And it also had huge constraints. Because it was a water mill, when you walked out one door, if you took a big step, you were in the water. So we had no land in which to expand. There was no external space. But also because it was an old listed building, we could only have single glazed windows. And we weren't allowed to have solar panels, and we weren't allowed to do any interesting renewable energy stuff. So that was a big reason for us to want to move. We needed more space, and we needed to be able to do all of the environmental things we'd always dreamed of doing.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the pandemic. I mean, clearly that hasn't affected your sales as much.
No, and actually we thought this was really odd when in the first sort of, let's say, few weeks of the pandemic, because Elvis and I, who's my partner, we met in Hong Kong during SARS, which was kind of a mini pandemic, if you like, and it was very serious then. And we thought, well, if this is SARS, it's going to be a big deal. So we sent everyone home a week before Boris did. So we were empty. And then the same week, the orders went up. And our business probably got 40% bigger over the course of the pandemic. And in a time when we had to completely re-choreograph how we manufactured, because we needed to manufacture in a way to keep everybody safe. So we had to change. We took sewing machines to people's houses. We were dropping off material and then collecting it again. We completely reconfigured the workshop. It was an interesting time. But yeah, the business did grow. And I thought that was weird too, because I didn't understand why people were buying luggage when they couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But I think they were buying luggage in the hopes that they could eventually go somewhere again. And yes, now we all can, so it's wonderful.
I think everyone at that point kept finding cheap holidays that they could go on the year after.
Yeah.
And they were ready to book
ready
those.
To go.
Yeah. But so how did you change your marketing strategy? I mean, you said at the start that a lot of it traveled by word of mouth, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And over the pandemic, that would have you would have had to change your marketing strategy, right?
I mean, not really, because let's say we decided we always were an online brand, so we always had a website for like more than a decade, right? Since 2006, the website was probably really going. We had a huge email list by then. We had lots of followers on our own social channels by then. But what we had started, let's say maybe 2017, was up until 2017, we had spent, the most we'd ever spent in a year on marketing was £800. So we hadn't ever spent any money on trying to find new audiences. And our company was quite small as a result, because we really were only selling to people who had heard about us through a friend. And we decided to explore social media and explore Facebook and Google and AdWords and all of these things. So in 2017, we hired an in-house digital lead. We started working with an agency at first, but the agency, our first agency, we had such a bad experience that we will probably never work with an agency ever again. Okay. So we built an in-house team instead. And the beauty of that is that, our head of digital internally knows everything about the business, everything about the products. He knows when we finish a new batch of pieces and they're ready to go. He knows when, because our materials are all rescued materials, he knows when we've got only one of a kind, and he can make a big project about that. Fire hose is one of our materials, but we also collect the waste leather produced as Burberry makes its leather goods. We collect all of their off-cut material. And some of the off-cut colors are really wild, like bubblegum pink or, find me, discover me orange. And a lot of them, yes, are trench coat colored tan, I grant you that. But but we have these one-off pieces. And if we were using an agency, I would have to spend half my week on the phone explaining these are the new cool things.
Yeah.
Whereas if we're all in the workshop together, it just happens by osmosis. So in 2017, we really started building that in-house capacity for doing advertising, and the company grew by 5 times.
Oh, wow.
So that was a huge, making that commitment was probably the best thing that we could have done.
I mean, after the pandemic, a lot of businesses took to bringing their marketing, their digital marketing, and their websites in-house.
Yeah.
So you've definitely experienced both worlds of the agency and without. What is some advice that you'd give to people who are starting their websites now? Do you think they should go with an agency or perhaps a platform like Shopify and trying to do it themselves? I mean, you've also coded it yourself as well.
Yeah. If you're starting now, you have to do it yourself. And the reason is that if someone else develops a website for you, the problem with that is that every time you want to change it, you have to pay someone however much they want to charge you to make that change. And that can be quite difficult. That's not difficult as you get to be a bigger company, but in the early days when cash is really tight, that's really tough. But also, I think it's really important to develop all the competencies in your business yourself so that you're aware and happy to pay when you want to so you're aware of how much time things take and you're happy to pay for those services later on. So we do all of our own imagery and we know how long it takes to take really good images. So I'm quite happy to work with photographers now from time to time because I know how valuable that is and we know how much time it's going to take. But the management of the website for us, we will always keep in-house because, again, for us, we have the one-off pieces. We need to be able to upload, put them on, sell them, take them off. We need to be able to communicate really exciting things. I mean, this summer we've had a drought, right? We had 2 days where the weather was 42 degrees. We planted 3,000 trees over the winter, and they all started to die, and it was a crisis. And we had the ability to reach out to the local community and say, does anybody want to come and help us spread some compost around? And we had the whole farm was flooded with people for whom this was a great way to get outside and do something a little bit interesting. And then they all jumped into one of the rainwater ponds at the end, and it was a good way to spend a 42-degree day.
That sounds absolutely lovely. I mean, having the community as such a strong support for you guys from the start. I mean, the firefighter community, but also your local community getting involved like that. It just sounds wonderful. But I wanted to ask about your conversion. So in terms of your site, as it grew, I mean, a lot of sites have had to rapidly evolve their kind of tech team to suit the requirements of today. Being that the conversion rates will be much higher because people are online a lot more, and in recent trends, the prediction for the next couple of years is that it's continuing to rapidly evolve, right?
Yeah.
And how are you going to face that?
Well, here's something maybe a little controversial. I don't necessarily want to grow the business. We have a climate catastrophe on our hands and we have a biodiversity catastrophe on our hands. The materials that we rescue, we are able to take all of those materials, turn them into products and sell them. In order to grow the business, I have to do new things. So yes, in 4 years' time, I'm going to have to sell 30,000 bottles of wine a year, but I'm confident that people are just going to arrive at the farm and drink wine, and we can probably get through that without ever having to put it in a bottle.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure we necessarily want to grow. We want our style of business to spread. We want more businesses to put the environment first and to put people first. But I'm not interested in having an empire or having hundreds and hundreds of employees. We have an amazing team of people that we all really care about. Everyone is well paid. Everyone is happy and content. And I think growth is not. I don't understand why we chase that. We have a sustainable, happy business, and we get to do interesting and challenging things all the time. We don't have any debt, and we don't have any shareholders. So
you're kind of in that happy spot.
Yes, you'll see a lot on our website. You'll see a lot of things where things are sold out, and we celebrate that. If something is sold out, we're like, this is called the joy of selling out, and maybe we won't have that item back again for 6 months, or maybe we'll never have it back. But I'm not going to start overproducing and then discounting and doing all of the stupid things that got us into this catastrophe
Exactly,
that we're
yeah.
in. So
I mean, fast fashion is a huge thing. I keep seeing news articles about it and how there are so many clothes that are abandoned, just
Yeah.
brand new in dumps and things like that. So you're kind of protecting the environment from that, aren't you? Like,
we're trying to
not
send a
only-
slightly different message. Well, I'm not a fast-moving consumer goods company.
Yeah.
I'm a ridiculously slow-moving company. And I think that's great. We don't, like, we have a system, if you buy one belt from us and you try to order that same belt again, you'll get an email saying, did something happen to your first belt? Because we can fix it. If you are smaller now, we can make it smaller for you. And if you're bigger now, we can make it bigger for you. And we can keep this belt going for you as long as you need it to keep going, because I don't see the point in you having two belts. I don't see the point in you having like a belt for spring and a belt for winter. I don't understand that at all. I mean, fire hose is red. That's the color of it. Or yellow. 5% of British hoses are yellow, so it's a rare color for us. But I don't want, we will repair items. We will help people keep things in service. And the idea is not to try and sell people more stuff, but help people have a happier life and, and less, I guess, need to just keep consuming.
So so there's like a strong theme that I'm getting where you kind of, would you expect to repeat customers? Because, I mean, you said that bag lasted you 15 years now?
Yeah.
Which is
I'll never have
amazing.
another bag. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah. I have a backpack as well, but that's like, for a different time, a
Yeah.
different place.
And you're really projecting this image of trying to promote a more sustainable world. And that's kind of showing from your emails and even your tech approach to everything. So, I mean, how do you, for example, with the emails, how do you target customers, and how do you get them to come back if you don't want them to buy a second belt, for example?
So if we have customers certainly that have 3 or 4 of our pieces, again, for different purposes. So they might have a belt and a purse and a bag, and that's it. Or we have a lot of customers that have one thing themselves, but they then buy our gifts, our products as gifts for other people. And I think that's because it's quite a fun gift to give someone when you say, this isn't just a notebook, this isn't just a journal, it's made from 25-year-old decommissioned fire hose, it's a life-saving material, and half of the profits go to firefighters.
Yeah.
I think that's a nice message to give when you're giving a gift. But yeah, on all of our communications, we just try to talk about like really fun and interesting things, because I think the best marketing strategy, or certainly the only one I'm comfortable with, is just the truth.
Yeah.
And if the truth isn't interesting, maybe the product isn't interesting either, and maybe you should be making a different product.
Yes, of course. I mean, your bag clearly sends out that message. And even when I was having a look at your website, the first thing that popped up and kind of popped out to me was the 50% that you donate to the firefighters. And you've made it a massive kind of marker, I guess, on your product.
Yeah.
Is there, well, I mean, to entrepreneurs out here, is there anything that you would recommend when trying to, so your approach is a sustainable approach, trying to keep that approach going?
Yeah, I mean, it's too late to set up a business that's just about making money. I think we have a lot of big problems to solve, and it is the entrepreneur's responsibility to solve it. It's the teacher's responsibility to solve it. It's a politician's responsibility to solve it. We have in society rights and responsibilities, and it's my responsibility to use all the skills and talent I have to make the world better for other people's grandchildren, and that's it. And I don't, you can be so creative within that brief. There's no limit to what you can do within that brief. The amount of fun we have running a business like this for 17, like I don't feel like I definitely don't feel like I've been working. People talk about your work-life balance. I'm just alive, and I love it. I think it's fantastic. So I do think people think, oh, it's like you give half the money away. I'm like, that's the best day of our year. Mm-hmm. It feels that the amount of joy we get from that is extraordinary, and the amount of goodwill that comes back to us as a company because we do that is overwhelming. So I don't know why more companies don't copy this, because it's the easiest pathway to joy and happiness that that I know of. It's just to me, it's a total no-brainer. I don't understand why we're kind of unique in doing this.
Yeah, I think it's clear that your approach is not in the ways that normal companies work. I mean, looking for profit and that kind of thing. Your only focus is the sustainable approach.
Yeah.
I mean, in the next 5 years or so, what do you think are going to be the biggest challenges for you?
There's only two. I only worry about climate change and biodiversity loss. Those are the only two things I worry about. The biggest challenge for me is that we planted all these vines. I know a lot about planting vines. I know zero about making wine. And luckily, it takes 3 to 4 years for vines to grow big enough to produce grapes. So I've got 3 to 4 years to learn a whole new skill set, which will be fun because it means lots of wine drinking. So that's fine. So that is going to be a challenge. Farming and climate change is going to be a challenge. Trying to communicate to all the people who've stayed with us on this journey for 17, 18 years now, why we've done this crazy farming thing, that's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
Continuing to, continuing to fight in light of the evidence to the contrary about how we're progressing against the climate change fight is going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
Dealing with Brexit, continued challenge. Dealing with, the inflation and that impact of that on our employees. Like, we're a living wage employer, and we continue to pay higher wages and higher wages because anything else is unconscionable. So those are all challenges.
I mean, you said with your business, you're kind of you're at like this happy spot now. And with the wages getting higher and the inflation rates, do you not think it would be more beneficial for you to grow your business to match, for you to be able to provide those wages?
Yes, and I'm sure sometimes the longer you've been established as a business, growth just comes to you. We get projects we got a project with Netflix to make notebooks for all their new writers. That just came in the door, and I don't know how they heard of us. I don't know anything about it. But the longer you've been around, the more kind of interesting projects come to you.
Yeah.
The project we did with Burberry and with their leather offcuts that's a long-term contract, and that's set to continue. And there's a few other brands that want to work with us now. So that I think growth will come naturally. It's just we don't seek it. And ideally, some of these things we'd like to spin out and see other teams take responsibility for. Because I think there's an optimum size of a team where everybody has a brilliant shorthand and gets along really well. And for me, anything larger than that means you have to have an HR function and do all of these other things, and that's just more stress than I would like to have as a founder.
But at the beginning, it was just you and your partner, right?
It was Elvis and I until 2013.
Okay,
From 2005 till 2013, there was 2 people in the business.
So for 8 years, you were building it yourself, and then you started outsourcing. I mean, getting people in to help you out.
Yeah, and now there's 25 of us.
Okay, wow. So it is a growing business essentially, but you're not putting any active marketing things out there because you think it's going to grow on its own.
Yes, essentially.
Very sustainable approach. I also wanted to ask, in terms of your actual platform, so you said you learned to code and you used Dreamviewer at the start. I'm not sure if if anyone really remembers that. I don't think I was around then.
No.
But so what sort of platform do you use now? Are you using Shopify?
Yeah, we went first from the Dreamweaver site that we built. Then we were on something called Roman Cart, which is still around, but it's not as big as Shopify. Suddenly became the biggest thing, and we went to Shopify because all of the apps that plug into it make your whole back office really, really easy. So it makes inventory control and all these other things really easy. So we use Shopify. We use MailChimp for emails. I mean, it's all very basic stuff. We don't use Klarna or ClearPay or any of these things because those are just payday lenders by a new name, forcing people into indebtedness. So we don't use any of those sales tactics. We sell, I think, 80% of our products are sold through our own website. And we have a few then special projects that make up the rest of the revenue.
Okay, so in terms of using the Shopify platform, when did you start? Well, when did you move from your old system to the new one?
I think we shifted from Roman Cart to Shopify probably in 2016, maybe.
Yeah, and does it match the well? I'm sure with
We should have
all
bought
the-
shares in Shopify at the time because its valuation has gone up significantly.
It's
We could have
huge
just
now.
done nothing as a company and just been shareholders. But yeah, it's huge now.
Does it match? I mean, does it provide everything that you need? I mean, does it match your business standards?
There's some things that we would love to change, and there's certain things about it that I think are a bit clunky and could be a bit better. But then you find a new Shopify support person who can help you smooth those out, and you can find people on Upwork or any of these other platforms to help you develop new things to plug into it. But I do think that actually websites, you should try and you can overthink them, you can overdesign them. It should be a communication tool. It should be really clear, really easy to understand. And people should know that, yes, if there's a product there, they can click on it and buy it, and it will arrive. But the most important thing that we do, I think, is customer service, which is, it's all us answering the phone. If you call our phone number, whoever is nearest the phone in the workshop will answer the phone. You know, we don't have some individual person who answers the phone. We get back to people as quickly as we can on all the social channels and via email, generally no longer than a day, and mostly within 10 to 15 minutes. Products that are ordered in one day are shipped out on the same day if it's before 2 p.m. So we're just a really responsive, agile, closely knit, tight team, and we care about people's experience of the products, and I think that shows. So the website is really just a simple front for all of the hard work that goes on behind it. Yeah.
So you guys really have that nice integration of the online presence, and then also you guys are just doing everything in-house.
Yes.
And having that relationship with your local community and your customers, of course. So when did you actually decide, like what made you think, okay, now it's time to change the platform or change something on your website? At what point do you make that decision?
We make those decisions all the time. Like, we're constantly rereading the website. We're updating and tweaking the content all the time. If we get a query from a customer that says, "Oh, can you explain this to me?" or "Can you tell me more about this product?" we think, well, clearly that product page is a failure, because if they've read the product page and they haven't, and it's not clear, then we have to improve that. And because we own the website and we manage it internally, we can make that change that day. So we're updating images every day. We're updating the content almost on a daily basis. And do look at our website. Do send me feedback. You'll see the website change as a result. We make those. We take people's feedback very, very seriously.
And how do you make yourself stand out from other competitors and other products that are similar to yours?
I don't know. I don't know if there are genuinely similar companies to ours.
No, I don't think with the fire hosing.
I've been walking around today, and there's some other companies here making goods from recycled and reclaimed materials. I think we're probably the only companies that's been doing that since 2005, manufacturing themselves and giving half of the profits to charity. I think I think we've got enough USPs. So I think the secret, if you want to stand out, is to actually do something that is stand out. So the communications can only stand out if you're actually doing something interesting. Otherwise, you're just one of these horrible boohoo companies that's greenwashing and making up a load of stuff and getting one of the Kardashians to make it look good for you. There's no point in just pretending you're interesting. Just be interesting. And then the communication side and the content side is really easy after that, because it's just the truth then.
And you actually just have the original content. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking through your social media. She was showing me pictures earlier, and it was just this beautiful farm, and they're building a warehouse with the straw bales, of course, and it's huge. It looks lovely. I mean, I was ready to book myself a tour, which I do encourage. ElvisandKresse.com.
Yep, ElvisandKresse.com.
I promise I wasn't bought out to say that. But in
pictures
terms
of our dog. There's a lot of our dog on there. He's very cute. He's very cute.
Yeah, I follow too many dogs already, but that'll be another one. So what do you, I mean, for growing entrepreneurs, what do you recommend? How do you think they should promote their online presence?
I think you have to do really interesting offline things. So the most amazing thing we ever did, or certainly the thing that converted the most into consistent views of the website and return visits to the website was this long-term partnership that we've got with the Firefighters Charity and now with Barefoot College. So half of the profits from our rescued leather collection go to Barefoot College, which is a charity that trains women to be solar engineers. And because we've got those two amazing stakeholders as part of our company, they drive their own traffic. So the advice I can give you is find a community, a genuine community to plug your business into, and make sure your business is in the service of that community, and then let karma take over, because it's real. I think there's a lot of goodwill out there, and if you're actually doing something good, then that good will come back to you.
No, sorry, I have a question about your platform again.
Okay.
In terms of your budget, how did you sort that out? I mean, from the beginning, how did you decide a budget? I mean, even massive companies these days have difficulties making one or two decisions on a tiny part of a website. So how did you get through that?
I mean, 2013 was so hard for us, because when we went from a company that spent no money because it was just the two of us and we were doing everything ourselves, to then hire people and start spending money with, online advertising and all the rest of it. That was really hard, because we completely underestimated the amount that could be spent. Not the amount that should be spent, but the amount that could be spent. And I think the only way to set a responsible or a sustainable budget is to work out what your actual return on investment is. A lot of ad sales companies or agencies will say, I can get you a 4-to-1 return. But they just mean for every $1 you spend with Facebook, you're going to get £4 in orders. Well, that doesn't mean a real return on investment, because you have to, in the rest of those £3, make the product, ship the product, run your website, keep your workshop open, pay your teams, and all these other things. So you really need to have a very, very tight spreadsheet on all of your spends and how your spend relates to every single dollar you spend. So we have we budget for every £1 of online spend has to deliver £10 of orders.
Yeah.
So that's and we set our budget monthly based on what we sold in that previous month the year before and what we sold in the month before. Yeah. Because Novembers and Decembers are different from the rest of the year. So you have to look at those 2 months kind of uniquely. Yeah. But we reset the budget basically every month. And that's the only way we can keep it disciplined, because otherwise with online stuff, it's kind of like gambling. You could just press go and all your money could be gone in about 50 seconds.
Oh, yeah. Yep, I've heard that from a load of companies, right? And that's the issue. Well, one of the biggest issues right now, they never know what platform to go with, because it's a constantly evolving space. Yeah.
But you have to make ethical decisions too, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I would ideally not give any money to Facebook, because I've watched it destroy a democracy, right? So I would ideally not give any money to Facebook. Yeah. So we're in the process of weaning ourselves off Facebook. But I'm not sure about TikTok either, because TikTok is a dodgy company. Yeah, it is. And I don't necessarily want them to have any of our budget. So we have to think of other ways of working.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's. I think we've just run out of time.
They're
but
announcing
thank
the
you
next
so
speaker.
much. Yes, they're announcing the next talk now.